Okay, so I am recording, and when you're looking at the files, you just want to go File New right off the bat. Now, what Illustrator does for you is they give you lots and lots of templates. Because who's going to remember all this stuff, right? I was so happy when they did this so I could just throw my notes away and not have to go find them. So now everything is at your fingertips regarding web, mobile, print, whatever it may be, film, art and illustration. Now, if you notice, they say point, but if you come over here and change it, you have inches. So this will tell you your inches. So just remember, you're in inches, not points, because this is set for European. You probably could change that in the preferences, but I never bother. The one thing that I have to say that is important for us to work on is to work on things that are, large enough and have the resolution. So I'm going to go back to print because we are doing print. And I'm just going to get to print large. Now look how big things can get, 264 inches, right? That's very, very big. Tabloid, 11 by 17. So I'm going to have you change it to 13 by 19. So let's do that now. So the width is, let's make the width be 19 and do it horizontal, 13, height. So you're changing it to 13 by 19. You're going to make, it's going to be horizontal and it's going to be inches. So definitely remember that this is probably the most important step in anything that you do when it comes to digital media, is to be able to set the parameters of the deliverable of what the client is asking. So why we are doing it, we're doing a logo design that is going to be used for print, and it is going to be used for web, and it is going to be used for video. So what's important about this, hey, Pablo, you have a question?
Hey, good evening, teacher. Yes, sorry. How can we change to inches? Sorry.
Just a drop down.
Drop down. Okay. Oh, okay. Thank you.
So here's what's important about creating design. There are what we call color systems. Some of you know these color systems. I'll ask Ramirez, Christian, if you're out there still. Christian, are you there?
Me or Gomez?
I'm sorry, Gomez. I said Ramirez. Gomez, are you out there? God bless you. Okay, I'll throw it out to anyone. Does anybody know the difference between CMYK and RGB?
I think so.
Anyone?
CMYK is what print uses, I believe, and RGB is like what computers use.
Correct. And give me the colors of them both.
Oh, RGB is red, green, blue. CMYK is cyan, magenta, yellow, CMY, and then K, I don't know.
Black.
Got you.
Yeah. So cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. So what does that mean is that when you put those four colors together in a printing press for print, right? We're talking print, hard copy. It has all the colors of everything, right? every color you want is CMYK when you combine those colors in print. Because remember, it's ink. So the ink has those colors. Now, in RGB, it's the same thing with our RGB. So we're going to make our logo be CMYK. We'll convert it to RGB when we do social media ads, but right now we're going to create a logo design. And I'm giving you the 13 by 19 because there's really good paper in Staples and it's cheap. And you can get it printed nicely. So you can get some nice hard copy examples. Some design studios require you to bring in design examples on hard copy. It tells them a lot. Screen, you can get away with everything. So you must be very particular with print for detail and so forth. So that is why, you know, a mistake on the web is easy to fix. A mistake in print is very expensive and you've lost money. So you have to be very meticulous. So the second thing that's important about all digital media is the aspect of resolution. So right there you can see for print, you need to have 300 DPI. For screen, you only need 72. But in video, if you bring in a static photograph and the photograph is not high resolution, you can't zoom in. So if you're zooming into a photograph, you want it to be sure to come in at a high resolution versus screen. So for our purposes, we want the 300. So having that, so this step is a critical step. So 13 by 19, we're going to make it horizontal. And then you say create. Okay. Now, Photoshop is much more, come on, Illustrator, much more cryptic than Photoshop is. Photoshop is really easy. It's a very intuitive program and so forth. And I'm just trying to get these boxes out of our way. Okay, good. Yes, snap to the top. Oh, yeah, very nice. Okay. So I'm just kind of taking away everything so you can understand what I'm doing. Now, first of all, these are your toolbars. So you have to have your toolbar open all the time, and you want to be able to mouse down and see everything. Now, when you click that, this is where it gives you, it'll take your designs and put it on a perspective view. It's hard to get rid of it. So you have to come up here to view and hide the grid. If you hit that by accident, which is easy to do. So remember that you do have these arrows, and whenever you have an arrow, you have, you know, a mouse down on that. So there's different, like this is your eraser, scissors, and knife, X-Acto knife, type on a curve, type in an area. Here's your pen tool. Now the pen tool is what we're going to do tonight. And this is probably the most important tool in Illustrator, and it has not changed from day one. And the reason why it hasn't changed is because it's so important. But this tool is what we call the vector tool, and it's in all programs that you'll ever use when it comes to digital media. Different programs design it differently, but what's important is that it's in music, it's in video editing, it's in web design, XD, Figma, all of them. And it's just simply because animation, all of them. And we'll get into why it's important. But this is the tool where they say, where drawers and illustrators say, I'll fix it in Photoshop. For when you're a photographer, but when you're a drawer, you say you fix it in Illustrator. And this is a tool they use. They use this pen tool. Okay, so that's important to remember. Other tools, we could go through a lot of them, like here's your eyedropper. You use your eyedropper when you want to pick up a color. So let's bring in a photograph. So I'm gonna, so in order to bring in a photograph, you do need to do a place. You don't do a drag and drop like you can in Photoshop. Place in Adobe means import. I don't know why they couldn't use the word import, but they didn't. And let me just get some pictures here. And let's see, let's get a nice picture here. Hands community, this is good. Yeah, this is good. So here's a picture of hands. And I'm gonna bring one that might be an illustration here, but let's place a photograph. And I'll show you some other things that my students have done. Let's go to images. See if we can get something here. Yeah, this is good. Okay. And like it's too big, right? So I want to get it small. So down here on the toolbar, and you get all your tools under window. So every tool pretty much in Illustrator is under window. So, you know, I have to search just like you do, and I've been on this program since version 1. So just know that there are windows related to functionality here, and there are also window tools that are also here. So for scale, so you want the tools, and that is right here, the toolbar, and I do advance. Always have advance. You don't want basic, you want advance. And so that's where I get my toolbar. And so I might put it there. But when you roll over this, that is the scale tool. So when you roll over these icons, they give you these little animations. So E, just a stroke of E, not even 2 keystrokes, just E, gives me the ability to scale this. Now, I'm going to emphasize something that's important. You never want to distort something that you're scaling. You never want to do that. Simply because you've been given an image and you're supposed to work from it, and you don't want to distort it. So you always must keep the shift key down, which I just did, shift key down, and then you bring it down and it will be the ability to be scaled proportionately. So I did not delete this. I mean, I did not distort this. So this is sort of an ambiguous photograph, which is just what we're going to walk through. I'm going to call up another one. So again, it's place. And now I'm just going to find another image. Let's see what we have here. No, don't want that one. I'm just going to jump to good old Google. Okay. And do remember when you, we'll talk about how to save images on here. Okay, so let's do, I found one thing that I'd like to bring in that has a defined shape. Where did you go? Here we go. No, I don't want that one. I want, there we go, this one. Okay, so now we have something, you see, that is a definitive image, right? Now I've lost the tail. So that's kind of important. And so I might have to find another picture that has a tail, because I guarantee you, anyone who knows whales knows their tails. So let's take a look at the next important thing is what we call layers. So I'm going to call up my layers. And they give you icons. So, you know, a lot of you are on laptops, so you don't have a lot of real estate. So you can kind of minimize things by just this arrow here. Click it and it pops it back up so that you can kind of economize on the tools and so forth. So as you can see, there's a lot over here. I'm just going to close them out. And so when you open it, the hamburger, we call these things hamburger in web design. They're horizontal lines, and that means that there's more under door number 2. I'm not getting it to go away. Move it over here, there. There, now I have it. I get the X, mouse down, get the X. So you want to clear as much real estate as possible. Now remember also the space bar. The space bar lets you move things around. I still to this day remember how when I started Adobe in version 1, it was actually not even Adobe, it was Macromedia. God, I can't think of the name, but anyway, but they all had the same kind of tool. I was like, I'm not gonna like this. I'm not gonna like this technology. I can't move my page around. And then I found the space bar and I was like, okay, now I'm in the seat to drive. So remember that. And again, if you want to jump out, zoom out quickly, just go to View, Fit All in Window. So I do that a lot, Fit in Window. So before we jump into this whale that I can actually make very big, I'm going to zoom out so that you can see Z key. There's your zoom, you roll over. It's the Z key. You can mouse down. And now in Illustrator, which is not in Photoshop, you get this outline canvas. This is something that you can create things on before you bring it to the page. Because remember, this is your page. So the way to get more pages is come up here to the artboard. The artboard creates your page. Now, if you do not have this horizontal bar, does anybody not have this horizontal bar? Because if you do not, what you want to get is your workspace Essential Classics. And then that horizontal bar may pop up. If it does pop up, then you can simply make your artboard and then come over here and make it the size that you want it to be, which is exactly the same as the other one, which is 19 inches and 13. And now you have the exact size. So Illustrator can make more than one page, and you can export to a PDF. So your designs can be created on multiple pages that can be exported as a PDF so that you can email, or, you know, if it's big, which it will be if it's photographs and a lot of points, you know, highly illustrated, of course. Our logos won't have anything. But as you can see, you can export different formats. So the authoring format is actually an AI, Adobe Illustrator. Rihanna.
Hi, Professor. I'm sorry. Can you just go over one more time how you made the picture small? Because I'm just like struggling with that a little.
Sure. Small in a sense of,
Like remember when you put the water picture, it was bigger before, and then
yes.
yeah, I'm having trouble with that.
Okay, great. Excellent. I'm glad you're asking me that. And anybody, again, you notice how I'm going to jump out quickly to fit in window. So I'm gonna make this whale picture be big.
Okay.
So you see how I just drag and drop it over?
Yes.
And when I hit the keystroke E,
E.
it's this icon right here, which is what we call the free transform. And E is right there as far as your keystroke.
Got it.
And so when I hit E, these handles get on attached. And what you want to be sure to do, Rihanna, is hit the shift key down. So basically when you're, please remember, if you're on a laptop, you cannot use a trackpad. You must have a mouse. You can't do anything with a trackpad when you work with these sophisticated programs. Trackpads are great when you're on the road and you're just kind of in Microsoft Word or something, or you're perusing the internet, but you can't do them at all with the tools like Illustrator and Photoshop. So definitely get a mobile mouse or a Bluetooth mouse. So when you have the scale on, which is what it is right now, after I hit the stroke E, you want to hit the shift key down, hold it down, hover over the edge. You don't want to come here. You want to go only to the corners, and then you bring it down. And then you let go, and then you let go of your shift. Okay? And so in that component, that is how you scale things as far as with the scale key. Shift key always. You can actually get fired if they come over and see the work that you're doing and they see that you distorted the picture. They'll go, you're working on a distorted picture. So you want to always be careful about that. The only time that you distort something is if you're in Photoshop. And you can distort your own designs, right? Like if you want to, but you do not want to distort the source, as we call it. So this is our source. So I wouldn't want a longer whale or a shorter whale. I want a whale just the way the photograph is.
Thank you so much, Professor.
Yeah, so that's important, and I welcome anyone to jump in with a question. So I'm going to zoom in again. So I'm going to do Z key. And Z key, if you mouse down and drag, it can go big and small. Okay. Now this is a lovely resolution, so that's really good. So I can kind of get a feel for the object that you are going to create. Now, I've taught digital illustration, and that's a lovely class to have. And I'll show you some examples, but I am welcome. If anybody wants to know more about illustration, like you could render this whale to be very beautiful in Illustrator. But right now we're just doing silhouettes and logos, so it's very minimal. It's not what I call an illustration. But having some of these details really would become exceptional. Almost to a point where you could do photorealistic, but you can also make it look like a Van Gogh, or you can make it look like, any kind of style of an illustration. So let's go now at this point. When you are working in a program like Illustrator, there's two things, as well as Photoshop, is that you cannot work in the program unless you have your toolbar and your layers. So what I like to do is I kind of like to get things organized, because I'm going to be doing something a lot. So I always like to bring my toolbar close to me so I don't have to go so far when I'm working. And the same thing with the Illustrator. I like it to be right within each other's distance, so that when I open this layer up, you see your layers here. Now, the layer design, the UX design of layers in Illustrator has evolved. And so often they like you to keep things all in one layer, simply because when you go send to the top or send to the bottom, it can jump. But if you're in a layer, if you're in multiple layers, in other words, if I create another layer and another layer, another layer, if I want to jump to these things, I have to manually move it. So it's good to stay within one, because you can group your subject matter in one layer. And I'll show you that when we get to creating some vectors. So the things that I want, these are my sources, right? So I want to lock them. So all you have to do is just click these. And you can unclick them by just dragging the mouse down. You see, I can do it quickly. I can do it one at a time. So I want them all to be locked. And why I want them to be locked is because I'm going to create a silhouette of this whale. So, so what I'm going to do is on this level here of the tools that we're going to get started with. First of all, I did mention the eyedropper, right? So the eyedropper lets you choose colors, literally, as you can see here. And so one other thing that you might want to be bringing up is what we call the swatch. And the swatch hopefully will look like this to you. If not, I'll show you how to change that. But for instance, I'm going to put my swatch over here. And the reason why I do that is because I can mouse down and drag it into my swatch. So if I was going to illustrate this whale and I just wanted the colors, you see, I can drag and drop the colors right into my swatch and get the colors that I want. So there's the blue, and I think it's the same blue. And they're right here is where they are. And that is the value of the eyedropper, is you can pick colors up. Now there's, you know, we do remember that you have the license to Adobe right now. That means that you have a license to the other apps as well. So try to download them on your mobile phone. There's a wonderful app that lets you take a photograph, or you can upload a photograph from your phone, and it will choose the 5 dominant colors of that photograph. And that is really ideal, because if you're somewhere in the forest or on the streets and you see some great graffiti and you love the color of the graffiti, or you see a mural and you love the color of the mural, you can take a picture of it and it will choose the 5 dominant colors. And we'll talk about colors another day, but it is a wonderful app. It's one of my favorite mobile apps that Adobe has created. So outside of this toolbar, I want to show you why the design is here. And then when you come over here, notice what it says on the rollover. Christian.
When I press on that eyedrop, it doesn't let me press on a color on my picture unless it's unlocked. My layers are unlocked.
Yeah, so mine, so when you get yours, unlock yours.
Okay.
That might be what happened. I don't know why mine doesn't care. I might have a version that doesn't care.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So on here, now watch what happens to my layers when I come over here, because I just want to demonstrate how to create a circle. So I'm going to do it over here. I'm going to put a shift key down, and that will make a perfect circle. So not only does shift keep things in proportion, it will give you the perfect square, the perfect circle. You know, the perfect square, perfect circle, if you keep the shift key down. So notice that my fill color is exactly, and when I roll over this one, stroke is this color. I mean, this box, I'm sorry, this box. And if you notice, I'm going to select with the black tool. I'm going to deselect. So I'll often tell you deselect, deselect. That just basically means select off of the object. So let's zoom in onto this. Let's put this down here. Oh, up here, because I want you to look at the layers. So you see here, this is the color. Now, if I bring this forward, I can double click this and I can go and choose web colors, or I can choose print colors. So these are print colors, CMYK, and these are RGB colors for the web. And so I can say okay. And if I like that color and I want to save it, that's when you bring in your swatch and you mouse down, drag and drop it into the swatch. So that's a lot of the drag and drops. Now, when I use my black tool, I can move the object. It's for that purpose. But there is no stroke on this shape. So if I want a color, I can choose a color. And now you can see that, but the stroke is very thin. So to make this stroke be bigger, you do want to select it and come up here to stroke in the upper left. Now there is a window for stroke, and that is over here, right under window, called up stroke, and I dragged and dropped it over here. And the reason why I did that, and again, you see it's selected. Selected shows you that vector line going through the stroke. And now I will make that stroke be big. And when I pop out of this view, fit in window, you can see that I have made a large stroke. So that's very important to understand conceptually. And Rihanna, is your hand up or is that just hanging there?
Sorry, Professor.
Not a problem. So do remember that if you're working on a shape and you don't want a stroke, you would click no stroke. And then if you wanted a stroke, you see it went back to 1, so I'll have to bring it back. And if I wanted that color to be saved, remember to save the color. Oops, did it save it? Yeah. So, so that's important to remember. I'm going to move this down a little bit more. But the other thing to make notice of is it made a layer. You did not make that. No, wait, let's emphasize the language here. I call layers automatically because in Illustrator, they do call this a layer. But these are what we call a path. So if I use the pen tool and I created a path like this, notice, and escape. If you want to break the pen path, just hit escape and it will break it. And now you will see that path is here. And so ellipse is the ellipse because I use the circle tool. But in most cases, it will always be called path. Now, if this was important, and I got to remember this, I would double click in here and just call it like a wave. So maybe this is going to be my wave, right? So now notice the edge here on this path. It's hard edge. What if you don't want it to be hard edge? Then you come over here to your stroke. When it's highlighted, remember, it's got to be on. Computers cannot read your mind. It's always based upon your selection. You can come over here and go, boom. Ah, nice and round. Or you could do it in extended. So there is this one. If you were matching up two lines, right? You might want that one. Or you want it to be a separate entity. As an end path, it will be solo, nothing attached. Or you want it to be nice and round, smoothed out. That depends on literally what you want, but that will change that for you. And again, you see I have a wave and it's changed. So I'm going to show you, I'm going to do a couple of more things. I'm kind of giving you enough things that you can kind of play with when we take our next break. And we'll be doing that soon. We'll do that at 8:30. So I want to show you what happens when you take your pen tool. And now I took the pen tool and I made this wave. I'm now going to take the anchor point, which is basically what we call the Bezier curve. And this is where we say, don't worry about not being able to draw with pencils. You can draw with Illustrator. And I do mean that literally. And as you can see, what you can do with this. Now, with this tool, you really want to master this tool because this tool is everything when it comes to Illustrator. And I'm just going to give you a couple of pointers on it. So I just made curves by mousing down on the pen tool and going to the anchor point. Now, if I don't want those curves, I can make them become straight by simply clicking them back to what they were when I had them, right? So again, if you want a curve, mouse down on the point and pull it out. Pull out that Bezier curve. If you don't want that curve, click the center point and it goes back. Now, say you want a curve on the left side, but you want a straight line on the right side. Then you take the Bezier curve, which is called anchor, don't forget, hit the handle. The Bezier curve has a point in the middle, and then it has two handles. That is why it's in audio, it's in video, and it's in design programs, because sound has a waveform. Video also has a wave of some sorts on a path. When a video clip travels, you can travel it on a curve or it can be angular. And that's why this was put in all those programs. So if you wanted it to be straight on the right side, you simply click the handle and it goes straight. And again, now, if you want to play with the curve on the left, or let's just say you want to move the point, you want to go to the white arrow. The white arrow moves the points. The black arrow moves the object. Again, the white arrow, and again, notice, these are all what you need to understand visually, that I know intuitively because I've been on this for so long. The points right now are selected. How do I know that? Because they are solid. If I deselect, and I want to select a point, the best thing to do is just select, roll over, and select the line, not the point. And now the points are white, which means that they are not selected. So I'll repeat. When points are solid, it means they are selected. When points are white, they means that they are not selected. And so if I wanted to move this point, I can move it up and down. Same thing here. Now, if I wanted to move this point, select the line, there's that handle, right? It is only one line. So if I come over here and I go back to that Bezier curve, and again, of course, intuitively, you've got the add a point and a delete a point. So if I didn't want this point, I could simply just click it. If I wanted to add a point because I feel like I need another point, I can do that, come up here, and then move it on that. So that's pretty self-explanatory because it has the plus and the minus. It's these two guys, the anchor, which is a little bit more complex. So when I go back to the Bezier curve, the anchor curve, and I mouse down, do know that your perfect curve is going to be viewable because you can turn on and view the grid. And if your line is, if your handles are straight, that means you have a perfect curve. If you slightly move it, it's going to be tilted. So always remember that when the handles are on a grid and they're perfectly on the same line, whether it be vertical or horizontal, you've got a perfect curve. Now the distance can make a difference though, because watch what happens if I just pull it out, right? It's on the line, but so then what you want to do is you want to count. And this is why we have the grid. So we want the same distance from the point center. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I lost my count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I got to bring it into here. Now you really have a perfect curve because it's the same distance from the center to the edge. Sometimes you can eyeball it, but sometimes you've got to be absolutely accurate. It depends on the context. Now what happens though is, say you want to make a curve and it moves the other side. Well, that's no fun because what you're saying is, I love this side. I don't want this to move. I don't like this curve and I want to move it. You need to put down the control key. Oops, not the control key, sorry. The Alt key. I always forget the two of them. So it's between the control or the Alt key. So the Alt key down, and with the white pointer, remember everything's your tools. The white pointer. Now when I mouse down on the handle, I'm only moving one. That gives you the control of one. So again, if I come over here and I click that, see now I have the Bezier curve. So let me get them both to be straight and then pull them out to be the same. Whoops. Let's get that kind of even with the grid. And then again, if you want, go back to the white arrow, right? Alt key down, and then I can bring in the curve on one side. Okay. So the next thing that we want to do before we break, so you can get started, and then I'll answer all your questions, of course, is when you are tracing your silhouette, because what we're doing is a silhouette of just the object. You want to be sure to choose a color, Number one, you don't want it to be solid. So turn the full off. You don't want it to be solid. You want to see your object. But you do want a color that is in contrast to what your picture is. So I'm going to double click and choose red or pink so I can clearly see that. And then I do want to have a reasonable size point so I can see. And then I'm going to go to my pen tool here and I'm just going to plot and watch how fast I'm going to work. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And here's a tail that does something. 4, 5, 8, 2, click, click. And then hover and wait for a circle. You'll see a little itsy bitsy circle. You may not even see it on the screen, but there's a little circle when you hover the closure. And then that means, yes, you are on the point you are connecting to. Click it. Now you have that. And that's how fast you work. And so then you come up here to your point tool and you get that anchor and your mouse down and you start getting the curve that it actually is. And I'm only going fast so we can take a break, right? And again, you see what I'm doing. I'm kind of getting things a little bit shapely so that it doesn't feel so rigid. And now when you get kind of mixed up here, just take your zoom key, zoom in, get really close. You don't even need glasses with Illustrator, even though I have them on. You see your handles are out of whack. Just pull them in like a horse's rein. Just pull them in. And again, bring that toolbar down. And sometimes, like for instance, this stroke is so thick, I'm going to bring it down to be at 2. So you can see, I can see it better now. I can see that this kind goes in. And now you can see all the bitmaps. That is your photograph. I'm going to take away that. Mouse down with the space bar, don't forget, so you can move things around. And say I want a point here. Add a point. Then back to the white arrow, take a point. So if you were really doing the detail here, you see you would add another point here, add another point here, add a point here, bring it down, bring it up, bring it down, space bar, add a point, back to the white tool, bring it up. You got to get to a point though, right, to bring things up. It doesn't come up in the middle. And then of course you see mouse down, zoom key, zoom out, mouse down, zoom out. Come in here, get that Bezier curve again. And again, let's add a point. Bring it down. Get the vector tool. And now you can see the work that becomes when you're doing a silhouette. So again, you can see, you can add the points and so forth. So I'd like you guys to have fun in working with this. You're going to make tons of mistakes. I'm going to stop.